Okay, welcome to the Cinder meeting for September 30th, 2020. So RC1 is out. It looks like we'll need an RC2. We'll go over the proposed release critical bugs in a few minutes. And I guess I'm supposed to be typing this also. Okay. All right, so let's do the updates. Okay, so first thing is your weekly reminder about the PTG. So the PTG is coming up, so please add topics. So here we go. There's going to be at least one new driver. Well, there's one driver, right, who's got reviews up, and so they're ready to go into master. There's another group that's proposing a driver. They're going to attend the PTG because they may need to do some brick changes to a brick connector. So that will be exciting. But so that's something else that's coming up for the PTG. Oh, yeah, so next topic is so usually I wait till the PTG to put, to propose with the team what our Cinder specific deadlines are on the schedule. But I was already getting questions about when the driver deadline is and stuff like that. So I just went ahead and posted it. So we can amend these if we want to at the PTG, but I just went ahead and looked and put in dates that seem to fit in with what we've done in the past. The only thing that might be a week earlier is the specs deadline, because if we did it the usual time, it would fall the week of Christmas, which is a big holiday for a lot of people, and I imagine we'll have pretty low review bandwidth. So I moved that to the Friday before Christmas. But otherwise, I think everything's pretty much the same. And then since this release is slightly longer than the one we just went through, taking a week away from the spec isn't really going to change much. So I think that's going to be fine. So just something to be aware of. So let me give you a link for this because I forgot to put it in the chat. Whoa. But I think everything else pretty much lines up with what we've done the last couple of cycles. So just so that you're aware. So the new driver merge deadline is milestone 2, as we've been doing it for a really long time. So that won't be a surprise to anyone. And it looks like for the other things, there aren't major holidays that I was aware of. But it would be good to check just in case that's not true and there is some holiday I'm missing. But because then we can just tell people to plan ahead. All right, so take a look at that. All right, now stable releases are coming up soon. So they've been proposed. They've got, a +2, just a matter of the release team being able to do it. So what we've got coming up for Usuri is 16.2, and for Train it's 15.4. Now, I just want to bring to your attention that they address this bug that got discovered about the upgrade process. So I think I can't remember anymore because my mind is shot, but I think we discussed this a couple of weeks ago at one of the meetings. So the problem was the online migrations didn't handle the soft deleted, items in our database. And so when the So if you hadn't purged the database, when you go to upgrade to Usuri, when we put down the uniqueness constraint, or no, the non-nullability constraint for volume type ID, it would fail because there were some items in the database, there's some rows in the database that are null. So we've backported fixes to the online migrations. So the only weirdness, well, not the only weirdness. So anyway, so there's some weirdness about doing the upgrades because depending on what people's processes are, they might not rerun online database migrations. And in the meantime, they may have removed the default volume type. So the main point here is I think we've addressed this really carefully in the release notes for both Train and Usuri, because depending on what you want to do, you can either fix it on the Usuri side, assuming your Train database is okay, or you can rerun the migrations on the Train side before you upgrade to Usuri. So it just depends on what you want to do, or you can purge the database and then not worry about any of this stuff, but that might not be an option for some customers. So anyway, so I just want people to be aware that that's an issue, and get that word out to their distributions, or if you support people yourself, just be aware that this might be some kind of weirdness you'll run into. So basically what happens is the database can't be upgraded on Usuri under certain specific circumstances that are explained in those release notes. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. I'll make sure that the Cinder update at the PTG mention this just so that everybody's aware. But I don't know how else to get it visibility, but at least everybody here should be aware of it. So depending on how your distribution does upgrades, you might want to make sure that the team associated with that knows about these issues. And then, oh yeah, and then Stein is going to be 14.3.0.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah, related to that topic, I was reading the bug notes on that,
Sure.
and it said there's a what to do. There's a recommendation saying that we should fix the online migrations in Train. Um, it,
Right. So we did. So yeah. So what's happened in Train is that the online migration has been updated so that it handles the deleted rows also. And we left the online migration in Usuri to do the same thing. So depending on so it gives you the opportunity to either do it in Train before you upgrade to Usuri, or to do it in Usuri. But you probably would need to change the order of how you usually do things, because usually we recommend database first and then the online migrations. So that's
right.
discussed in there. But the issue, it's complicated because of the default volume type. So it turned out, so we've made it explicitly deletable, and we've made the management of the default volume type better, but there's still the possibility that somebody might have removed it, and it was removable even before we made it deletable, because if you renamed it, you could remove the renamed thing.
Right.
So that's why the notes are kind of complicated, because the only thing is, in order to do the migration, you do need to have a default type. I mean, the default type. So,
Okay.
so the instructions tell you how to create one if you need to. I don't know how big of an issue this is. Mohammed Nasser, who reported it, ran into it because he was upgrading his public cloud to Usuri. So he ran into this because they need to keep track of all the deleted resources in the database. So it's not an option for him to purge it. But people coming aboard, it's not going to be an issue for. People who upgrade to this version of Train that's about to be released won't have a problem because the migrations are fixed. So it's really just going to be existing people I don't know what kind of count we have.
Okay. Because I am looking at actually upgrading from Queens to Train now in all of our production deployments. So if we're going to release this soon, then I probably should wait
Yes,
to
so
do
this should
that.
be released like momentarily. So that
Okay.
yeah, so the release patches have a +1, I mean a +2, just waiting for the last approval. So
Oh,
yeah, so
okay.
I would recommend if you
All
upgrade
right.
to this one, everything should work fine as far as we,
All
at
right.
least with respect to this problem, right?
So in the upgrade to train, are we not creating in the database
So what
scripts,
happens is,
creating
and
the default volume type?
right, so we do create the default volume type, and then we populate all the empty volume type IDs with that default volume type, um, even for the deleted ones. And then when you upgrade to Usuri is when the uniqueness constraint, I'm sorry, that's a different problem. It's the non-nullability constraint is put on to that to those columns in I think it's the volumes and the snapshots tables.
Okay, gotcha.
So
All right,
everything
then.
should be clean. And then once the migrations happen, you can you've got you can handle the default, the double underscore default volume type however you want. Um,
Okay.
because it's the usual thing. If existing volumes have that type, it won't be deletable until those volumes either have been retyped or have been deleted. If it was only applied to fill in the deleted stuff, you'll be able to delete it directly if you don't want it. Or of course you can just leave it there. So
Okay. All right.
lots
I
of
will just
options.
wait for this patch to land and get released, and then I'll
Yeah,
touch base
and
with
then
my
if you come right,
branch.
and then hopefully everything will work smoothly. So
I hope so too.
yeah. Um,
All right. Thank you. Sorry
Yeah, no,
to interrupt.
that's fine because I don't know how else to get this. I guess I should send something to the mailing list, just saying be aware of this issue. So as soon as those get, so I'll put something out to the mailing list as soon as those releases are actually cut. So
Okay. Thank you.
all the patches are there, so you can look at the release notes in the usual place online. It's just they'll be until the release actually gets cut, they won't be showing up as a release, if that makes any sense, which it might not. Okay, anything else for updates or any announcements anybody wants to share with us? Okay, I didn't write any of that stuff down, so let me just add something into it so we got it in the meeting minutes. Question about. All right, so these releases, which action. Oh yeah, and I didn't say anything about the Stein release. The only thing new in Stein is there was a final, I think I mentioned this last week, there was a final bug fix associated with the OSSN 0086, which was the Dell EMC Scale IO VX Flex OS issue. Um, and so so the only change, I'm not sure if there was anything else in Stein. This may have been the only thing. It just upgrades the required version of OS. So the fix was actually an OS brick for that. It wasn't a Cinder side release. So the only change, I believe, in that is to update the requirement so that you're using the correct brick with Stein. I think that was all. So that's why so I haven't mentioned Stein because it's not really complicated. It's just the updated release. Okay, that's all the updates I've got. So let's go to our first topic, which is release critical bugs. And I'll give you a reminder of our handy release critical patch Etherpad. Okay, so what we've got, so RC1 was released. What we've got for RC2, there was the issue that Lucio brought up last week, and that I think Kaiser's been working on. So to prevent NFS extend for online, because it doesn't work at the moment. So we just want it, we want to stop it early. So I think that's definitely worth backporting. So that patch is proposed to master, so it does need some more reviews. I think it looks good, and I'm not sure I actually voted on it. I was looking at it just before the meeting. So what we need to do for that is get it merged to master and then backport it to stable Victoria. Rajat's token scope patch was merged to master, and it's been proposed as a backport. So stable cores need to review that. So I'll be looking at that right after the meeting. There's a patch proposed for the Cinder manage cluster remove, and somebody's putting a note that it always fails. So let's take I'm not taking any notes. Okay, so so I think prevent the online extend. We definitely want to get in. Okay, so that one, the token scope. Use. And then the Cinder manage cluster remove. But I actually want some input about whether this needs to be backported now or can wait. Link to that one. Whoops. It seems like a fairly straightforward change, but there's a lot of discussion on the patch. So take a look at that. I think it looks sufficiently isolated that it's probably safe. So I guess I don't have any objection, but it's not usually the kind of. So anyway, I want some input about whether this is release critical and needs to get into RC2 or whether it can wait until the first stable release from Victoria. Any opinions? I think this is one of those things, depending on how you're using Cinder, it might be an enormous pain in the butt. So,
Which issue are you talking about? The one
I'm sorry.
Cinder
Yeah,
manage?
so it's right. So 750 077. Let me put the,
So I put it there.
okay.
The Cinder managed cluster remove operation always fails because there was a because the parameter name had a hyphen, and the test CMD, I mean the manage command script was not considering parameters with hyphens, instead only with underscores. So the decorator was now fixed to accept hyphens as well. And I'm not sure if it's really is critical, but I think it was there since the beginning. So
Yeah,
I'm not sure why nobody complained about that until now, but yeah, I think it would be nice to have it merged.
I think we didn't find this issue before just because not everybody uses Cinder in active mode, to be honest. And we've got very few users with active HA, and that's why such kind of bugs are not found before. I fixed a few bugs with HA this release, and I know the situation.
right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So, um, yeah, I think I don't have any objection into getting it into RC2. Um,
Are there any commands where we don't want that dash to be converted to underscore? Since this looks like it's always converting it. I can't think of any, but I just wanted to raise that.
right.
It's in the review.
So I did a quick look on the other possible parameters, and the only parameter that actually had a dash in its name was cluster name, and all other occurrences of dash was for dash dash something, and the decorator is explicitly ignoring those that start with dashes. So it will be ignoring the dash dash cases. So it would be a problem if we start adding other parameters with dash dash something dash another name in the parameter name. Maybe not. I think there's a yeah, I would need to look it further, but
For optional parameters, our parser actually converts dashes to underscores automatically. The problem is for positional parameters. Yeah. And I think we should always convert if we use a dash, convert to underscore for positional arguments, so we don't actually break things like I did.
So is there a reason why we're not just changing cluster dash name to cluster underscore name in the conf instead to fix this?
yeah. So Sean McGuinness added a comment. The first fix for this proposed was converting the parameter name from cluster dash name to cluster underscore name. But Sean told, let me see here what he wrote exactly. We've tried to be consistent with making sure that command line arguments use dash instead of underscore. We should keep that consistency here. So yeah, that's the reason.
Okay. Feels a little hackish, but if that's fine. I just wanted to raise it since that seems to be an obvious solution too. Okay.
All right, so this way it's backward compatible, but it's more consistent with how we're handling things in the Cinder client and elsewhere. Okay. Yeah, I mean, okay. I think we've got time. Yeah, I don't want this thing to sit longer. So my opinion is this looks like has very low impact of breaking stuff. And it would probably be better to merge it than to just have it sit a little while longer. But I'm open to other opinions if anyone. I think our stable core group isn't well represented at the meeting today.
Do we need a little bit more documentation on this since we're going to be blindly converting dashes to underscores? Unless you actually know where this code is, it is kind of lost in the weeds a little bit.
So you mean for like developers?
Yeah. Yep.
If we're going to be blindly changing it for positional arguments, I don't think it's too relevant because we are just, nobody's going to use a variable with a dash, and you cannot actually use the full name with the dash in the command line. So it's the only thing that changes if you put a dash and an underscore, besides that it actually works, it's that you change the help. In the help menu, you would see an underscore or a dash. That's the only real change here. So I'm not sure it's worth documenting or anything.
Yeah, I was just looking at the review, and the code where we're actually switching everything has no comment in it as to why we're doing it, and that made me think, well, should we inform everybody that we're doing this blindly? Because it's not really documented anywhere. If it might cause an issue, but anyway, I'll shut up now.
Okay.
In any case, I think it's good to have this bug fixed, but it does not looks like a release critical release blocker for me.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with that. Okay, so let's continue to review it.
Well, we can merge it and then backport it after the release. Is that
right. Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just go ahead and improve it now then if we're all kind of in agreement.
All right, so we're going to okay. Then I just want to make one that has anyone come across anything in the last week or so that looks like a release critical bug? I'll have to take a look at our bug list again. I'm not aware of anything. So the only thing we don't have a patch for then is the Brocade release note. So I was going to, our plan with Brocade is to test it with RC1 and then we were going to put a note in the release explaining the status of the Brocade driver that has been tested with RC1. It doesn't have third-party CI, so it's, to the best of our knowledge, it's working, but it's sort of use at your own risk kind of thing. Okay, and then final RCs are next week. So yeah, so I think we should be able to have something by Tuesday. All right, so in the meantime, if anyone comes across a release critical bug, please notify us in the Cinder channel as soon as possible so we can take a quick look. And then it looks like we're in pretty good shape for Victoria. There's one patch somebody may be aware of that had been sitting a while, but it's a minor database change, but it's still a database change. So I'm thinking it's just going to have to wait for Wallaby. So that's that. Okay, any questions about the RC2? Okay, great.
Hi, Brian, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I was having some mic problems. This is Chris Mayo with Seagate.
Okay.
I have an issue. I submitted a patch to update the HP MSA driver to document support for a new array, and I kind of screwed up, and there's an additional patch that's actually required to support that array. And so I think I need to either pull the patch for the documentation or get the patch that's needed to actually fix the support for that array into the release. And I'm not sure about the timing. I know we're very close to the deadline, if not past it.
Right. So okay. So the code is okay. The documentation needs an update, is what you're saying?
Well, so I submitted a documentation update saying that a new model, a new HP storage array, it was supported by the existing driver.
Okay.
But that I was doing some testing last night, and I determined that was not actually the case. There's one more patch that's required for that array. So I'd like to get the patch into the Victoria release. But if it's too late for that, then I would need to pull out that change to the documentation, just so the documentation's accurate.
Yeah, I mean, so okay, so we got that's the patch we're talking about?
Talking about a patch I just posted in the chat.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, that's the one. The CI is passing, but it's not reporting right now.
Okay.
Our CI stopped working last week when I guess there was a change to the emu requirements or something like that.
Oh, okay.
The patch itself looks good for me, but from the stable backport perspective, I would like to have some bug report mentioned in the commit message.
So just a bug for the addition of the support for the new model or the new firmware?
So if it only bug fix, it's okay to get this big port into Victoria, but we need to be sure that it bug fix, and we need to have bug reported in the Launchpad. And if it's a new feature for this driver, I think it's very, very late to get this merged for Victoria.
It's not so much a new feature as what happened was the firmware team removed some older commands that were deprecated, and the driver was still using the old names for the commands because that enabled backwards compatibility with older models of the array. And so what the patch does is basically it looks at the firmware revision and it uses the newer syntax for the newer firmware.
Okay, yeah, tell you what, I mean, Yvonne's right. Why don't you explain that as a bug, right? So the bug is that the driver needs to be updated to be aware of the new commands or whatever. Because if it's a feature, it can't be backported, but if it's a bug, it can. So it does sound like it's more like a bug in that this was supported and now it's broken because of a change in the firmware. So file the bug explaining that because of the firmware change, the driver needs to be updated to do what you're doing in the patch, and then put the bug in the commit message as closes bug, and then the question is it release critical? So whether it's critical or not depends on. I'm sorry, what was it saying you would have to revert?
Well, so the documentation already says that this driver is supported,
Okay,
or the newer firmware is supported.
okay. Yeah, yeah, I mean, so my opinion is that, right, to do the revert would be a patch that we would have to get in. Since this is going to impact only your customers, I'm assuming you've tested it very carefully. So it would be low impact to others. So I'm okay with this being included in RC2. Although, if this, what did you say the status of your CI is at this point?
So basically, I'm rebuilding the CI.
Okay.
So I basically have one instance of the CI running. I like to run like 4 in parallel.
Sure.
And I have because of COVID, we're just having trouble getting stuff done in the lab. So, but basically, so I'll have it reporting results. I guess I have to resubmit it with the updated change note, and that will basically will be reported and with all the logs and stuff. And I'm just sort of furiously working on trying to get more instances of the server up. But I basically I can run that patch against the other older firmware, for example. And I have been just not in a form that reports up to the CI.
Let's all right, let's do it this way. Today's Wednesday. All right, let's revisit this on Monday in the Cinder channel. Give us an update. So if we can if the CI is working and this is merged to master by Monday, then I'm willing to entertain it into RC2. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and do the revert in the documentation that you mentioned. So let me. So how does that sound?
That sounds more than fair.
Okay, so let's do. All right, and then in the meantime, make sure you file the bug, as Yvonne pointed out, and then include that in the commit message.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Any other questions about RC2? All right, so keep an eye on the bug list, please, and put a shout in the Cinder channel if anything comes up. Okay, thanks. All right, next topic. So I think this is mostly a heads up. So the topic is being specific about what versions of Ceph are supported. So we don't have a statement anywhere saying how far back we support Ceph, and it's probably a good idea for us to provide some kind of limitation. But I don't know what makes sense with respect to what people are actually using with Cinder. So mainly this is a call to, we'll discuss this at the PTG, but we do need to have some kind of data to make this determination. So if you could talk to people in your companies who do use Ceph with Cinder and get a sense of what they're using. I mean, I don't know if people let their Cephs get really old or if they're really on top of keeping them up to date. I just don't know. And since we'll be probably, if somebody's gonna get mad no matter what we do, right? So I think we do need to be specific about how far back we go and what the expectations are. So that definitely makes sense. It's just a matter of figuring out where it makes sense to draw that line with respect to what people are actually doing. And then once we've announced, that we only support certain versions of Ceph, then it will make it easier to do deprecations and start to, get closer to what Ceph itself supports. So that's the point of that topic. So I better write some of that into the channel. So we'll discuss this at the PTG.
And I guess this is also relevant with respect to if I ever get the Ceph SCSI driver to merge too. Because
Right.
The only thing we're testing against is one of the latest versions, not previous ones.
Right. So, I suppose I can also put out like a poll, like send a message to the operators list and just ask, if you're using Ceph with Cinder, what version are you using? So I'll do that also. But since you never know who's going to respond to these kinds of things, I think it's better for any of you who actually deal with customers who use Ceph with Cinder, get a sense of what version they're using. Okay, that's all I had about that topic, unless somebody, uh, anything they like to say. Okay. Okay. And Yvonne's adding some notes. Oh, okay, this is about the other thing. Okay. Um, Next topic was just, I noticed a patch that's, okay, now I know how some of us feel about this. Okay, so put a link in the channel, and it's also on the agenda. So this is not something that would go into Victoria, but our so far we've taken the position that no more uses of 6, right, in new code for sure, and it's okay to remove it from Cinder, but we have said it's okay to leave it in the drivers to make it easier to do driver backports. At this point, we're supporting S, T, and U. Right, T is the last version that supported Python 2. So I think S is going to go end of life sometime in the next month or two. So we are still supporting a stable branch that supports Python 2. So the reason I'm bringing this up is that patch changes not just Cinder, but a whole bunch of drivers too. And so that's the question is, do we want to enforce this on the drivers in Wallaby, or do we want to keep with our current policy of saying it's okay for the drivers to have 6?
So when
As you
Wallaby
may
is
know,
go ahead, Ivan.
I don't like 6 library itself, but as we agreed before, we're okay to keep Python 2 compatibility code at least in drivers for now, and this patch removes Python 2 compatibility for drivers, so we can backward patch easily. And from other side, this patch does a lot of changes that it's hard to review because it's file CI, and from my opinion, I don't want to remove such patches, but if somebody changed some piece of code in Cinder and in these changes he or she removes 6 or Python 2 compatibility code, it's okay. But having dozens of remove 6 patches, not really good idea. That's my opinion.
So your opinion is you'd prefer to see this done in smaller pieces than instead of this big ass chunk?
Yes,
Yeah, I'm inclined to
because
agree.
it's easy to review. It will be more clean Git history and easy to backports and change it. So, etc.
Okay. All right, I'll put a comment on the and anyone else who feels like it also. Okay, I just want to make sure we talked about it before people got reviewing. I think that makes a lot of sense.
So when Wallaby ships, we are still supporting train at that point, correct?
Yeah,
Okay. So my personal opinion is to leave 6 in for drivers then until the release after Wallaby.
right. Okay. Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. And we already have the policy for new code, so new drivers coming in won't have 6 in them, so that's good. And we're gradually getting rid of it. All right, so I noticed the person who did this has patches up against pretty much every repository in OpenStack. So I will just give them the heads up that we would prefer them breaking it down into more easily digestible pieces. and making them aware of the driver policy. Okay, thanks. Okay, and I'm looking at the wrong group. Okay, so I should put a note for that somewhere. Okay. Okay, so all right, sorry. Okay, next thing. Okay, cinderlib topic. Okay, Luigi, that's you.
Yeah. Okay. So if you open that review, it's a backport of the some Zool v3 jobs to Stein, just to clean it up before its end of life. And I had it ready for a long time, but I forgot to submit it. And the reason why I didn't do that is because we have few things to fix. Another issue is that so the main problem is that the Cinder Tempest plugin LVM Leo job is defined into Cinder Tempest plugin. But for Stein, it shouldn't use the it shouldn't run Cinderlib things at all. So that's the first issue. That's probably the things that should be fixed at all. But while trying to fix that, you can see that Cinderlib tries to always run the latest version of OSBrick and Cinder when you run the functional test through Tox. And while this is, I mean, it won't be a problem for that patch because we need some changes to disable Cinderlib tests in Stein, but it's it means that, for example, in Train and in Usuri and all the other stable branches, we are using the master version of OSBrick instead of the stable version of it.
Oh.
So
Yeah, we need to change that.
I think Gorka put that in place to make it easier for developing, but that's a problem for stable branches.
Yeah, I think we can just change it and leave the normal functional one without that requirement of using, and just add it for a new job, a new Tox entry like functional dev or whatever, for development. It's easy, but we don't mess up with how the gate actually works.
Okay.
And that should be backportable, right?
Yeah, all stable Cinderlib branches. So.
Okay. Great.
Okay, so I guess we have a solution. Okay, thanks. So
okay,
just
and Yvonne,
the awareness.
you see Yvonne's notes sort of agreeing with this, so it's better to use the released Cinder and Brick in the Cinderlib.
I just showed that we've got the same issue and we decided to switch CIs to use the latest released versions of Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
It's the short story, it's the long story. We changed Horizon release cycle for this, but the different issues. So now need to take it into account.
So Luigi, what do you need from us at this point?
Oh, well, we have a plan, so I'm not sure I will have the time to create that patch, but
Okay.
like now, but anyway, we have a plan. So if anyone else would like to do that, be my guest. Otherwise, I will try to do that in the next weeks.
Okay. So that's fine. Yeah, and Stein isn't. We'll get an announcement. I mean, Sean had to leave, but we'll get an announcement, and then everybody gets to. We'll make sure this is in Stein before we close the branch. So don't worry about that. Okay, great. All right. We're at 10:59, so the meeting is just about to end. Any other observations? Thank you for attending. I don't know if the meeting log is going to be very useful again. So open discussion for 30 seconds. If you have any feedback about doing the meetings like this, whether you like it or hate it, or whether it's useless or whether it's good, right? I'm sort of going on the model that if people don't explicitly say this sucks, we'll continue to do it once a month. So, keep that in mind. But if it, I don't want to waste anybody's time. It's kind of nice to see people. But on the other hand, if we're not getting as much done as we usually do, then maybe this isn't a good idea. Although we did everything on the agenda, so I guess we're okay. Anyway, I guess we'll do a few more of these and then do a poll or something in the next cycle to see if it's a good idea.
I kind of like it because I think we can actually get even more things done because we don't get multiple conversations simultaneously.
That's true, yeah.
And it's sometimes frustrating when in IRC you're trying to make a point and suddenly there's another conversation and your point keeps scrolling up.
No, that's true. Yes, that's very true. Okay, that's a good point. Okay, we'll keep that in mind. All right, I hate to kick everybody out, but we've got to make room for Horizon and OpenStack meeting all. So I think we're going to lose Yvonne in a second. But
Good.
What's an end meeting, right?
It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you also. I'm not going to actually kick people out, although I think Yvonne's got to go. So thanks for attending, Yvonne, and have an enjoyable Horizon meeting.
I have to run as well.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Me too.
I'm going to stop the recording. All right. Excuse me while I stop.